Hello, everybody, and welcome to World Sprout. We are so excited because today is actually the first day that we will be doing a cultural talk. And we have a really special presentation planned for today. We have the wonderful Karen Garza Pacheco with us today. Karen is a content creator and a showrunner from Mexico. She's worked with several Mexican artists and brands as a photographer, a video producer, an editor, and also as a model. And Karen loves to travel. She loves photography and going to concerts. And Karen also happens to be the moderator of our Mexico forum here on World Sprout. So if anybody's interested, we definitely encourage you to reach out to her on the forums and interact. And the last thing I'll say is we'll reserve some time at the end of this presentation for questions from the audience. So please just put yourselves on mute if you're not presenting. And if you have a question towards the end, raise your hand. You can do the little emoji hand, and then we'll know that you have a question. But Karen's prepared a really cool presentation for us today. She produced a video for us, which you guys can actually watch already. It's in the link for this event. And it's all about the Mercado, or the marketplace in Mexico, and why that's important. So again, thank you so much, Karen, for being with us here today, and I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me today. I think I'm gonna start with putting like a little clip of the video, like 1 minute, and then you can see the rest if you want in the platform. And here it is. Hello, World Sprout. Welcome to Mexico. My name is Karen, and today I'm going to take you to the Mercado with me. The Mercado is located in the city center of Merida, which I love because you get to see all the traditional architecture and the beautiful buildings. It first opened its doors in 1887, and it was named Lucas de Galvez after the governor of that time. It is huge. You can literally get lost in here, and you can find everything you can think of, from toys to all kinds of clothes, to even religious figurines and candles and crosses. And we even found some stands selling Santeria things. For example, these bottles were remedies for protection and for success. Or even these other magical powders. Mercado? Well, pretty much it's a video, as you can see, of me explaining a little bit about the mercados and why are they so important here in Mexico. They are actually really interesting, and if somebody ever comes to Mexico, I would recommend going to one in like your local city. You can find great food. You can find a lot of like little gifts for your family that are locally made. So I think that's great. And well, going on with the presentation, as David said, I'm Karen. I'm 23 years old, and I was born in Mexico City. But I've been moving a lot since I was a kid. Right now, for example, I'm living in Merida. And for 2 months, for 3 months, I live in Holbox Island, which is a little island really in the coast, really near from Merida and Cancun. Well, here are like some pictures that I love from there. I've been living here in Merida for like 9 years now. And when I first moved here, it was kind of difficult because even though it's the same country, it is so different from Mexico City and from what I was used to that it was some sort of like a cultural shock. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about Mexico. Even though the cities, we are like a whole country, it's like in the States, every place is way too different. And here in Mexico, I think diversity is amazing. So it's been really interesting to be living in all these three places. There, as you can see here, is Mexico City. It's the capital of Mexico, and it's one of the world's biggest countries. I think it's the 5th biggest country in the world, and it's tiny, like in space-wise. Then here is Merida, and here is Holbox. I think it's a Caribbean, in the Caribbean Mexican side. And well, I'm gonna talk a little bit about each country and why I think you should visit them, and how, yeah, like how different and yet similar they can be. So this is Mexico City. As you can see, I mean, it's tiny, yet it's like very well, like, I mean, it's a metropolis. It is huge. There's a lot of buildings here. It's like the place where most of the people go to work. Like, not only people from Mexico City work in Mexico City, there's a lot of people coming from the outskirts of Mexico City into the city to work. Well, in Mexico City, you can find a lot of things. You can find beautiful parks, and you can find like big castles and old buildings, and there's a lot of museums and art. I actually read yesterday that it's the city with most museums in the world. So you can literally find like a little bit of anything. This is one of the biggest libraries, and it's beautiful, it's impressive, it's humongous. Oh, and this is a new park it's kind of in like the outskirts of Mexico City. It's one of the like, yeah, further parts. And it is new, and it's a huge park that they designed. And it's really funny because this place is called Santa Fe, and it has also like it's like a little city within Mexico City. Like, it has a lot of buildings, and a lot of people live and work there too. And I think it's beautiful. And this is a video that I took from the plane view. It's a little foggy, but you can see like how big Mexico City actually is. Like, it's really huge. I cannot explain it. Then here are some pictures of like my life in Mexico City. You know, I used to went to a lot of art expositions that I love. This one was from like an artist from Berlin, and it was called Skylar, I think. It was lights and music, and it was beautiful. Then this is the Castillo of Chapultepec, the Castle of Chapultepec. And it is also a museum. It has a lot of history, and it's within Chapultepec, which is like this huge park within Mexico City. They call it the lungs of Mexico City, because as you can see, it's like a huge city, and we do not have like that many parks. I think the government is working on that. But this place, it's beautiful, and it has this castle within the park, and there's a lot of museums inside the park. So I think it's really interesting. Then this stadium is huge. I think it's one of the biggest stadiums here in Mexico City. And I went for a football game, and it was really interesting because, I mean, I'm not a like huge football fan, but you can like feel the vibe, and being there, it's like really splendid. And this is it's a picture of one of the neighborhood I used to live in my last years in Mexico City. It's called La Condesa. And I think it's one of the most beautiful neighborhoods actually in Mexico City. Like, it is beautiful. The architecture, the colors. It has actually a couple of parks. It used to be it's called Hipódromo Condesa, and it used to be like for horses. Like, the parks used to be for horse sightseeing in like the way old days, in the old days. And here are also some pictures that I took from the exposition. And there's a lot of concerts here too, since it's the capital. A lot of things go to the city, and I mean, it's the city with most concerts and festivals. This is actually from a Mercado in Mexico City. It's called La Central de Abastos, and it's the biggest market in Latin America, I think, or one of the biggest markets in Latin America. Like, all the little markets around Mexico get like their stuff from this market, and it is beautiful. It has 9 murals, I think, and artists from all around the world came and made the Central de Abastos like beautiful. they made art there, and I know a project that talks about that. It's called Arte y Abastos, and I think that's amazing. Like this place which nobody goes to probably, or nobody knows, unless you're from Mexico City. And then this is another flea market. It is also, this one is very popular, even between like the people from, like, tourists know about this place a lot, or they get told to go here. It's called La Lagunilla, and it's huge too. I think you can go there only on Sundays and Saturdays, I think. And you can find absolutely anything. They have a lot of antique stuff, which is good, cool. I go a lot. Well, I used to go a lot there when I was little. And the last time I went, I actually went thrift shopping. You can also find like really cool, nice clothes there, really, really cheap, like way too cheap. And as you can see, a lot of antique stuff and music instruments. You can even buy furniture there. It's quite amazing. Then my next destination is Merida, Yucatan, which is where I live now. In comparison to Mexico City, it's like this really small. It's a city, but I feel like it's a town sometimes, because I was used to like the hectic city and the noise and being late for everything because there's a lot of traffic. And here it's, people are so chill, and everything they do it like very calmly, because Merida, it's like people here still feel as if it's a town, a little town, the little town they used to know. And even if in these 9 years I've been living here, it's been growing so much. Like this is Merida, and in the outskirts there are actually a lot of like little towns, that they're not really Merida, but they come here to Merida to study. Merida has one of the best public universities, I think, in Mexico, which is really amazing. And all the people from like around Merida, they come to the university here because there's not really any other university here like near. And it is kind of big in like talking in mile wise, but it's small as in, I mean, it's small, it feels small. It has a lot of history, and there's a lot of Mayan culture present here. A lot of people in the outskirts of Merida still talk Maya, like as their first language. And actually some like spots on the radio and on TV are in Maya, because yeah, they need people to like be informed about what's happening in Merida. These ones, there's called these like big houses here called casonas, that used to be from like the Spanish people who came here, and they built like houses and churches because they made haciendas and had like the little towns kind of, and they produced a lot of henequen here, that it's like kind of a fiber. They used to make clothes and stuff like that with that. And it's called actually it's a plant, so it's called the green gold, because people used to be really rich because of it. Like Merida was a rich city because there was a lot of henequen to work with. And now there's a lot of beautiful big houses left behind. They are called casonas. And a lot of them are actually museums now, or not museums, but you can go inside, and a lot of them still have like the old furniture they used to have in like the 60s. So it's impressive to see how they lived. There's also a lot of new museums. I think Merida, the people in Merida are really worried about like culture, and they care a lot about it. This one is one of the newest ones. It's called El Palacio de la Música, the Palace of Music, or Music's Palace. And it has a lot of history about music that's from here, from the peninsula. And it's really beautiful. It's in the city center, and I actually love the city center. It's quite beautiful. They have like a lot of tiny old houses. Oh, this is a video for, this is like a little hall next to one of the biggest churches here in Mexico. And they have a museum, And they also always have sculptures or paintings or some sort of art. So walking in Merida, even though it's kind of difficult because of the weather and the heat, I think it's really beautiful because you get to see all these little houses. There's this neighborhood in the city center called, I think it's, I don't remember the name, but it has, they care a lot about there about like how the houses are painted. So they are always like very good, beautiful painted, and it's very colorful to see. And also not in the city center, but like a little bit more in the north, you can find a lot of these like old houses with like a really 60s vibe, and I think it's really beautiful too. It's really amazing. And one of the things that shocked me the most when I first moved here actually is that families here in Merida, like locals, they go to the beach in summer and spring break. They always go to the beach. They either have a house or they rent a house. And well, the beach is really close to the city. It's 20 minutes away. And it's like such a tradition that even some like local places or restaurants, they close their like locals in the city and they open up in the beach, like just for those times, like in summer and spring break, which I think it's really like weird. And I mean, it's really cool because a lot of my friends grew up going to the beach, and I think that's beautiful. I didn't get to have that in the city. And well, Progreso is actually really beautiful right now. They like cleaned everything and renewed a lot of stuff. And right now the pier, it's beautiful, and you can walk like on the beach. And they made like a long walk, and they put like sculptures, and yeah, they're taking a lot of care of that. So I think it's also like a cool place to go and spend the day, and the sunsets there are amazing. It's crazy. And well, lastly, I want to talk about Holbox. As I said before, I lived there for only 3 months. My first time there was in February of this year, and I fell in love with it. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and it was so different from everything I knew. As you can see, it's a little town. Like it's 6 blocks wide and 6 blocks long. You need to get there on ferry, and it's like a 20-minute trip on the ferry. And most of it is natural preserve. So I mean, look at this. It's teeny tiny. Like I got to know pretty much everyone on my 3 months stay there. And well, what I think about Holbox, that it's so beautiful. Well, as you can see, it's half a natural preserve. From this point in this picture, you can only walk 2 kilometers more, and then you need to stop because it's the natural preserve. And well, what I think it's beautiful about Holbox, besides it being like a little tropical paradise, is that a lot of people go there, like tourists, like backpackers actually. So I think it's amazing because you get to know a lot of like people from around the world. And we made a lot of like very nice and beautiful friendships in like a really short amount of time. And it was kind of weird because you have like this really cool connection with someone, but you know they are living in like 2 months back to their country, and you might never see them again. Or they might be there for a couple of days, and you hang out with them a couple of days, and then they'll continue traveling through Mexico City. But also a lot of people go there for like a week and end up staying for like 6 months. I knew a lot of people that were like, oh no, yeah, I've been living here for 6 months now, and I was only here for like 1 week. I still don't want to go back. So I think that's also like really crazy. And I took these pictures. It is the only market in Holbox. And I wanted to show it because it's really funny. Well, it's not really funny. As you can see, there are markets everywhere. In every city, you can find a market. And it's cool because you can find like local stuff from each city specifically. And this one is tiny, just as the island. It had like 2 fruit and vegetable shops, a couple of taco stands, And in the afternoons they sell like in the corner clothes and cell phones and stuff like that. It's really difficult to bring stuff to the island because it's an island pretty much. Oh my gosh, oh, they're gonna play at the same time. I'm gonna silence them. But this first one is when it's rain, it's not paved. That's also beautiful. Nothing in the town is paved. There's no pavement in the town. Cars are forbidden. When you want to build something in Holbox, is really difficult because one, it's an island, and also because you can only bring like trucks and stuff, construction trucks or trucks with material at certain times at night or in certain days, because as it's not paved, when it rains, it is really difficult to like go around. It's completely, you need to walk between little pools. Also, people don't wear shoes there. Like most of the people are either barefoot or with I mean, if locals do have like rain boots because of this. Like it is actually insane how like flooded it can get on the rain season. They have to drain most of the water with trucks. So it's kind of crazy. And this video, it's from 2 weeks ago. I was there again, and there was like this basketball match between Cancun and Holbox, and as the minutes went by, more and more and more people were standing there watching the game, and everyone was cheering Holbox. And I think that's really cool. Like even like tourists were standing there and supporting the group. And also every night you can go there and watch like the locals play, or even sometimes tourists play too, like football or volleyball. It's really beautiful. And well, a little bit of history about it. It used to be a fishing town. Now it lives mainly off of tourism. And it is mostly known about like the whale shark. You can see the whale shark here in, I think it's in the summer months. And there's a lot of murals here in Holbox. A lot of artists have been going to Holbox and painting murals like all around the town, and it's quite beautiful. Like you can see art walking around like the little town, and it's beautiful. And they used to have hammocks on the sea, which was like a very trendy thing to do to post on Instagram. And now they are gone. I'm not really sure why. I think they had some like trouble with the wildlife and the wild protection things. So yeah, and as you can see, it's really like beautiful and colorful. And I used to play every day volleyball at the beach, and I got to meet a lot of really nice people there who are, I mean, the vibes, I think in Holbox, or like the vibe, it's funny to talk about vibes. Like not a lot of people believe in that, but when you go to Holbox, you feel like everybody wants to be friends with everybody. Nobody's there being like bad or anything. It's so tiny that when somebody is causing a little bit of trouble, they can actually, the locals kick people out of the island. They don't want trouble. They want people to be happy, and everybody goes there and feels like this beautiful vibe. And it's like, yeah, that's the thing to do. And well, yeah, that's pretty much the presentation. I wanted to talk also a little bit about how, as you could see there's mercados in every city in Mexico. And even though all these places are different from each other, like really different from each other, Mexico is a big metropolis, and everyone is always in a hurry. Merida, everyone's always so calm, and it's like a growing city, and it's growing really fast, and a lot of people are coming here to invest and to live here, because it's also one of the, I think it's the most safe city in Mexico, and I think it's one of the most safe cities in Latin America. So a lot of people come here and they want to stay here and live here. And then Holbox is like this little island, and I live barefoot and in like bikini for 3 months straight, and I loved it. It's so different, yet I think they are still like very similar in some stuff. I think Mexicans we are very loving of Mexico, even though sometimes we are not. Like, I mean, like everyone in their countries, there are things we do not like. But when it comes to like, I think one of the most big examples I have is on football games. Like Mexicans are known for being like football lovers and everything, and it's like Mexicans can really come together and love Mexico together. And if you find a Mexican in while traveling in another country, like I've made Mexican friends in another countries, and we spend days together, and we kind of travel a little bit together, or we see each other, and we're like, oh, you can come to my house when we are in Mexico. So I think Mexicans are what unites Mexico, or what makes Mexico like kind of similar yet so different, is like the people here, and markets also. You can find them everywhere, and I think there are places that you can only not get to know the city that you're visiting, but you can get to know like Mexico and what it is about. It is very loud and it's very messy, but it is so colorful, and people there are so nice. I think that's what Mexico is kind of about. It's loud and messy, but yet it's so colorful, and it has like so much to show. We have a lot of like flora and fauna. We have deserts that are 20 minutes away from the beach. I think that's really cool. A lot of people from TV productions come to Mexico to like film things, because they can find everything. Like if they need to go to the woods, they go to the woods. It's close. They need a desert, they can find a desert here. Like we have a lot. And I think we have like a lot of hidden gems, even though Mexico is known for like tourism. I think people go to like very specific places, and I think there's so much more. I think Holbox, for example, is going to be like the next. People say Holbox or Bacalar, which is another like tiny little town here in the Yucatan Peninsula. They say they're gonna be the next Tulum, and I mean they might. They are growing so much. People are discovering Holbox. It is crazy to think that it can be the next Tulum, but I think it is important for Holbox to like grow and stuff. But yeah, it's beautiful. I think we have a lot of hidden gems here in Mexico, and they are worth visiting, and they are worth knowing. We have a lot of culture too, and I think Mexico is really interesting. Like I, as a Mexican, don't think I think I'm missing. Like I haven't been to a lot of maybe Mexican cities, and I want to, because they are so different. Even traveling as a Mexican, you can learn a lot while traveling here from your own country. So yeah, it's beautiful. And well, that's pretty much it for the presentation. Thank you so much.
Karen, thank you. Thank you so much. That was such an interesting presentation. I'm going to see if I can bring back.
I think you're on mute, David.
Oh, can you hear me? No.
Oh, there you go.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was just saying, Karen, thank you so much. That was such a cool presentation.
Yeah. I'm going to put the, sorry.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was just going to say there's so much that I want to follow up. I mean, I think we could talk for hours about this because it's so interesting. Just kind of two quick comments I wanted to make. I think for a lot of Americans, maybe some who are watching this, but just in general, they don't really know Mexico, right? They know Mexico. Maybe they think of Cancun or Tijuana or, Ensenada or somewhere that maybe they took a cruise to, or if they've never been, they might think about it as at the border between the US, or they might think of it from the movies or the news that we watch. And as you told us, I mean, there's really so much more to Mexico that it's really hard to describe just what Mexico is. And I think a lot of Americans don't really truly understand or appreciate just how diverse of a country it is. And as you said yourself, I mean, as a Mexican, you feel like there's so much more that you need to explore and learn in the country. And I think that's so cool. And so I just wanted to comment on that. The second thing I think is just really fascinating, especially for our listeners to think through is, the importance of the Mercado. And I think, me personally, as an American, when I've gone to Mexico, I never put it into words, but I've always been drawn to the markets too. And I don't know why. And I think it's because we miss out in America, for so long, we started developing our suburbs and people kind of left cities, and we had, we almost kind of lost our sense of local community and local marketplaces. And now over the last, 15 years, you've been seeing farmers markets, and we're seeing kind of a return to marketplaces, not to the extent of Mexico, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that's a really interesting dynamic. And I think a lot of Americans are kind of fascinated by that. And maybe we wish we had that ourselves a little bit. So anyway, thank you so much for presenting that. And I did want to, I have several questions, but I know that Zoe actually had a question, so I wanted to give her the opportunity to ask.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Karen. Thanks so much for sharing with us. That was an awesome presentation. I had a question that came up during your presentation. I think it was more towards the beginning when you were talking about the different types of products that are in the market and things that you can find. You had a shot of all these different colored bottles, right? And you said that they were kind of like, different kind of elixirs and things.
Yeah.
Do you drink those, or what's the deal with those? Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I think it's really funny. Here in Mexico, there's a lot of people believe like in shamans and stuff like that. So it's very common to see those kind of remedies. I'm not sure though about those. I don't think you should drink those. I think it's more like you put them on or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really interesting even for me. They also have like cleanses, and like they can give you sessions so they can tell you your fortune and everything like that. And they actually have a lot of like different remedies for things, like the powders too. It was really funny. They have like drops that you actually kind of like eat, but it's like little drops and stuff. Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things I think I saw in the Mercado that day.
Interesting. And I was wondering too about Holbox, where it is, located on the country. Do they get a lot of hurricanes there and a lot of like crazy weather?
Yeah, actually, I think the last hurricane it destroyed the town. Like people had actually to evacuate the island.
Wow.
I think it was like 3 years ago. Yeah, it was 3 years ago. And it was crazy. People had to leave the island for months, I think, or 1 month maybe. And in Merida we also get hurricanes too, but I think Holbox as an island, it's way different. When I was there was like a tropical storm like going toward the island, and it was kind of like my mom and my boyfriend's mom were like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna stay? Are you gonna be safe there? Like, is it okay if you stay? And we were like, okay, let's see how the storm goes. And it only rained. It was nothing like too crazy. It only rained for like 2 weeks straight every day at every hour, and that's why it was so flooded actually. But yeah, it is kind of like semi dangerous. One of the friends I made actually in the last hurricane, he stayed in the island because you can volunteer to stay to like kind of ward the island for that while, and they give you like a place to stay that's safe and everything. But he told us that it was like really hard and really crazy. But yeah, they do.
Yeah, I bet. We live in Houston, so we see, some hurricanes and storms and weathers and that kind of thing too. So that makes sense. One last question, if it's okay. Whenever I think about more of like, your time in Mexico City, and it's like a hustling, bustling city with people everywhere and traffic and all of that, I always think about, okay, the equivalent of that in the US is kind of like a New York type of deal where it's just all these different forms of transportation, everybody's coming and going. And a big thing in our culture is like drinking coffee in the morning. So like people get coffee on the way to work and, you know, to go coffees.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is that a thing like in Mexico City too? Like, do people drink coffee in the morning and do they like get a to-go coffee on their way to work? Or is that just like a super American thing? Or I don't know. I was just wondering that.
Yeah, we actually do, but I mean, coffee, yeah, but it's funny because here it's like you get coffee and there's this local Mexican coffee that it's called Café de Olla. It's sweetened with this thing called piloncillo, which is really sweet, and they put cinnamon on. So it's different. It's really sweet different from black coffee. And here, when you go to work, you usually get like a coffee and a bread, some type of like bread. There's a lot of like people selling in the street bread. Like they go on bikes with like little baskets selling bread in the morning. Like you can see the people, the bread stands at 6 a.m. every morning, because people do that. They buy like, I don't know, a concha or stuff like that. And also it's very common, for example, to get on Fridays in a lot of like offices in La Condesa, I think mostly, they go out to have like breakfast in like one of the stands, like with your office partners, for example. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, we do have that. We also have, it's very used to drink when it's called, this thing called Atole, which is a drink that it's really thick, and you can find it in different flavors like chocolate and strawberry and vanilla and stuff like that. And it's also like very common and very typical. I think it's more common in Mexico City. I don't see it here in Merida. And yeah, that they tend to drink that with torta de tamal. Yeah. So yeah, it's like drinking this really thick drink with this like very heavy meal, but it's what people do. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So Karen, I have a quick question. I wanted to ask, you talked a little bit about Merida, where you live. And, what I find really interesting too about Mexico is, the culture, there are influences from other cultures, right? Like various indigenous cultures,
Yeah.
like Mayan, but then also Spanish and Caribbean and African. There's all kinds of influences in Mexico. I'm curious, like, how might somebody see some of the Mayan influences in a city like Merida, where you live? Yeah.
Well, I think mainly you can see, as I mentioned, like a lot of spots in Mayan in the radio and on the TV, and a lot of people still talk Mayan. Like it's quite common, like to hear people talking in Mayan. I think it's getting a little bit lost in my generation, because my generation's parents wanted to like talk and gossip without their children knowing. But it's still like really well known. And then in the outskirts, people also still build their houses in this like Mayan fashion, in this Mayan way, like the architecture, like the typical houses are like little ovals, and it's just like one oval, and they have like the ceilings are made with palm leaves, dried palm leaves, like palapas. I think that's like a really good reference. And they as a fence, they put like rocks on top of each other, and here it's called an albarrada. And here in Merida, they also have a lot of like different words from the rest of Mexico City. I think you can find a lot of different slangs if you visit Mexico in general. But here in Merida, they talk like very weird, very, very weird. When I first came here, I was like, what? They have a lot of Mayan words that they use as slang. So it's like really mixed into it. And also the food, I think the food, it's really, it's heavily like influenced by the Mayan culture here, and there's a lot of also archaeological sites really close, like Merida, really near Merida. And for example, in the afternoons in the city center, I'm not sure if right now because of like the pandemic they still do it, but they used to have like these presentations of the el juego de la pelota, that it's kind of like football, Mayan football, I might say. And it's an ancient game that they used to play in like in the pyramids, and it was a really big deal. They have to hit the ball with their hips, and they have to put it through like these hoops which are like 3 meters from the ground, maybe 2 meters, and whoever won had the privilege of being sacrificed in the old days. And now you can see that presentation here in the city center. They do not kill anybody, but they do that. Yeah, and also after the football, that game, del juego de la pelota, there's also sometimes like shamans, and they cleanse you can get in line and they will cleanse your bad energy. So yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, if you come to Merida, I think you could probably notice it. And mainly if you go to like the outskirts, we also have a lot of like Spanish influence because of the Henneken. And I mean, if you think about it, Mexico, it's kind of like a new country,
Right.
in some sense. Yeah.
That is so fascinating. Yeah, there are so many other questions I just want to keep asking. I do know that we're pretty much at the end of our time, so I think what we really need to do is schedule another talk. To be honest, I mean, we need to have a follow-up. So I guess just with, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love just some parting words. If you could tell some of our audience and listeners, what would you advise them if they were to travel to Mexico for the first time? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, I think one of the best things anybody can do, and I think this is not only for Mexico, I think it's like anywhere you travel, ask locals for recommendations, but not just locals. Like, don't ask the people in the hotel for recommendations because they are going to recommend a very touristy thing to do. Ask locals on the street, like, hey, where can I eat today, right now? Because there are also a lot of like hidden, like even the tiniest restaurants, or which are like super cheap and nobody goes there, only locals, they tend to be like the best ones. And I mean, I use TripAdvisor a lot on Google Maps, but I think asking locals, you can find the best either cheap or free things to do. And I mean, I've said it before, I think Mexicans were like really warm and welcoming with like a lot of people. And so you might even make like a friend if you talk to a local person. And yeah, they're gonna tell you a lot of like the best things to do and to see. And even if they are touristy, they're gonna say like, hey, this thing is really touristy, but it's really worth it, like I've done it. Also, yeah, try going like uncommon places, and try consuming local, like go to the tiny restaurant or go and eat on the street. Like, I think there's a lot of like very yeah, I think that's like a really good place to get to. Yeah, a really good way to know Mexico, like eating on the street and walking around. I mean, there are some cities that you cannot walk around that easily, but in the city centers you usually can. So walking around and yeah, sightseeing, being open to seeing stuff and to try a lot of weird stuff. Like sometimes I don't know in which city, but if you go, it's really common to eat grasshoppers, like fried grasshoppers. And that's also like a cultural thing. It's Oaxaca. It's like a cultural thing from Oaxaca. And it is also something like they have been doing for ages. So like be open to trying new things, I'd say. And yeah, ask locals for sure.
Thank you so much. That's super great advice. And I just want to thank you again, Karen, for taking the time to be with us today. I'd like to encourage everybody to reach out to Karen if you have any other questions. She'll be in the World Sprout platform. If you ever need any kind of professional video work done, she is your person in Mexico. And I know I'll definitely be asking her for more work as well. But thank you so much, Karen. It's been a really fascinating talk. And for everybody listening, again, I would recommend you watch the Mercado video that she's produced. It's in our World Sprout platform, and you can watch the full recording to get a good sense. But thank you again, Karen. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and having me today, David.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll close for our listeners. We have another discussion coming up this Wednesday, and we hope Karen is there as well if she would like to be. But we'll actually be bringing you to a new part of the world. We'll be visiting Rajasthan in India and talking with a couple there who will share with us the history and some of the sites of Rajasthan. And I know as somebody who's never been to India, I'm super interested in checking that out. So please stay tuned, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, David.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.